The Eldritch Hack Rules Like Cthulhu RPG featuring the scenario Cloak House is available for download at Drive-Thru RPG. You've been warned. Professor DungeonMaster here. Recently, Super Geek Mike had a popular video called Let's Talk About Tiberius, in which he speculated as to why Orion Okaba, who played Tiberius Stormwind, left Critical Role after Season 1. I'm not interested in all the drama, but I am interested in Episode 25, when Tiberius murders a sleeping old woman. That's how the story is told on many Critical Role fan sites, but I've seen that episode, and the truth is almost all of Vox Machina participated in the crime. Tiberius just took the rap. But what would cause a group of seemingly kind, conscientious, vegetarian voice actors to go full-blown American Psycho on Jessica Fletcher? And are they any more demented than your group or mine? I don't think so. We go to the scene of the crime. Today on Dungeon Craft. Welcome to Dungeon Craft. I'm Professor DungeonMaster, and this channel is about playing the ultimate game of D&D and other tabletop role-playing games.
And I'm Deathbringer. Level up your game by subscribing.
Today I'm wearing my +2 vest of protection because I'm talking about Critical Role, specifically episode 25, when they kind of murder an old lady. But don't misconstrue this as I don't like Critical Role. In fact, I like Critical Role. I think Matt is a terrific game master, and the players are also terrific. The reason I like this episode is because they act just as demented as my players do. Some background if you've never seen the show. Vox Machina are a band of mercenaries played by the cast. In episode 25, they're approached by Lilith, a halfling played by guest player Kit Buss, and she's being pursued by the Broker, a mysterious bounty hunter. At the 2-hour, 42-minute mark, the Broker finally appears. He steps out of the forest, and Matt Mercer describes him this way. He's a tiefling with slick back hair and a dark cloak. He's accompanied by two other figures. About 30 feet away is a muscular guy with red skin wearing a white featureless mask, and on the other side is a, quote, sickly old woman. The Broker says, "I have no quarrel with any of you. We're looking for a fugitive, and as luck would have it, you guys go and smoke her out of a hole." At which point Marissa, playing Calith the Druid, says, "I crack my staff on the ground and cast Anti-Life Shell. Then it's roll for initiative." The Broker wins attacks and misses. Percy blows a hole in his chest, and Grog, a 7-foot-tall giant, electrocutes the sickly old woman with a lightning javelin. The old woman casts Misty Step and moves 30 feet away, but that's not going to help her because Vex sends her bear Trinket to maul her. And while she's being mauled by a bear, Vex shoots her in the back with an arrow. Scanlan puts her to sleep, and Tiberius eviscerates her with his crawl blade. Mind you, these are the heroes of the story. Meanwhile, the rest of the cast are laughing, saying she needs to die. She's obviously evil because she's with the Broker. Even though there's no evidence that she's evil, she's not said anything. She hasn't attacked them. Yeah, she tries to cast a spell, but that's in self-defense. Vox Machina started it. They're the ones who initiated a combat against a deputized law enforcement officer. And the Broker says, "I have no quarrel with you people." He tries to resolve the situation peacefully. For all we know, the Broker isn't evil either. He's just a guy in a dark cloak with slick back hair who happens to look like a demon, but that doesn't necessarily mean he's evil. Maybe he's just doing his job. He's got 6 kids to feed and a mortgage to pay. We don't know. But I'm not passing judgment because my players would have done the exact same thing. And that's because the Game Master brain and the player brain are totally different. You see, in every DM skull is an inner Peter Jackson, little Kiwi fantasy filmmaker who's building epic stories and worlds, or at least they want to. That's why you become a Dungeon Master, to create stories and worlds. The player brain is completely different, and it wants to do 3 things. Build a character who kicks ass, do cool things, and win the scenario at all costs. Why all the optimizing and multi-classes and dual wielding? It's because players want characters who are cool and kick ass and dominate every situation. The instinct to win is always stronger than the role-playing game instinct, even when it's professional voice actors like the cast of Critical Role. If you understand there's a difference between your brain and the player brain, it becomes a lot easier to design scenarios. At least you won't be completely frustrated. You'll have some inkling as to why the players make the weird decisions that they do. There's a Dork Tower cartoon where the Game Master spends 6 months adapting Lord of the Rings, and in the first scene, one of the players kills Gandalf and takes the ring, and the other guts him like a fish. It's hilarious, and the most accurate depiction of a role-playing game I've ever read. The Game Master has prepared a story, but the players don't care. That's not why they're playing. They want to win. Even players who are into roleplay and doing accents and creating a different persona, it all goes out the window if they believe they will lose any tactical advantage. That's why Marisha attacked first. CR Stats lists Vox Machina's alignments as mostly good. If they were good, they would have parlayed with the broker and waited until he attacked first. Then they would have been acting in self-defense. But that would have put them at a tactical disadvantage, and the gamer brain can't allow that. And that's why they killed the old lady. It's why your players would have done the same thing, and why most D&D campaigns are less like Lord of the Rings and more like Lord of the Flies. Matt made the right move. He has Vox Machina arrested and brought before the local lord, who demands to know, why are you killing members of the AARP? It's a logical consequence for what they've done. Orion is a little perturbed and frustrated about this because he has the attitude of many players. They want a game where there's no consequences. They feel that their character should be able to do things and they shouldn't face any sort of repercussions. They should just dominate and everyone should just let them alone. It's a kind of a video game mentality. Like when I talk to my son about Skyrim, like, what do you do in Skyrim? And he's like, oh, I kill all these villagers today. And I said, well, didn't the authorities come after you? And he's like, well, I killed them too. So he's living in a world where there are really no consequences to his actions, where he can dominate everybody and be the most powerful character there is. If a player like this comes to D&D, they may be frustrated if the Game Master, like Matt, tries to create verisimilitude, where your actions have an opposite reaction and people hold you accountable for the atrocities you commit. So what's the answer when your group wants to commit war crimes on the elderly? Well, the first tool in your toolbox is the confirmatory paraphrase. This is where you just repeat back to the players what they say they want to do. Like, let me see if I have this straight. You want to fireball an old woman who hasn't attacked you. Second, make sure player choices have consequences. Matt did the right thing when he had Vox Machina arrested and put on trial for their crimes where they had to defend their actions. In first edition D&D, if your good aligned character did something evil and changed alignment, they would lose a level, and a lot of people didn't like that. They found it was overly punitive. That's an idea you might consider bringing back into your campaign, or you could impose some sort of other penalty. You could say your character is so blinded by hate and rage they lose 1 point of wisdom. Or your character is so vicious and cruel, dogs bark at them, cats hiss at them, and children cry when they pass by, -1 charisma. And 3, you could just let it play out. You can't be overly concerned that the players are going to hijack your story. That's what they're going to do. It's why your game isn't a novel. They go in a direction you're not expecting. Just go with it. I'm sure Matt didn't plan to have episode 26 be the trial of Vox Machina, but if something like that happens, good for you. They just created your next session's plot. So I don't think the cast of Critical Role are any more depraved or demented than your group or mine. They play to win. And if your players do something egregious, do like Matt does and make sure their actions have consequences. At least that's what I think. What do you think? Please share your thoughts in the comments below. Also below you'll find links to DungeonCraft on Facebook and Patreon, where you can get tons of cool stuff, and Drive-Thru RPG, where you can get my house rules, Deathbringer, and the Eldritch Hack. Once again, this has been Professor DungeonMaster for DungeonCraft. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you soon. May all your rolls be 20s.
Deathbringer again. Vox Machina, give me a call if you need help taking on the Golden Girls. I'm all in. Now get my t-shirt and watch more DungeonCraft.